51.4.
Nifty 50.
Yes. My most used focal length.
Is it?
Hence why I've got so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
A very curious lens.
Curious.
It's curious.
Ah.
Because there's a lot of things online where people are saying, what's the difference? Why is it an upgrade from the 1.8? Is it different? How is it different?
Well, it's not
What's
S
it like?
for a start, is it? Whatever S means.
Well, that's the biggest thing. So yes, well, I've looked on Nikon website and it doesn't say what it actually is trying to do with it.
Right.
So it doesn't say it's retro. It just says anything but standard.
What? Is that what S stands for then? Standard? Anything but S.
So I look at all the lenses and it just says all the jargon's like that. It doesn't tell you.
Right.
So if you look on that
Marketing for
website,
you.
you wouldn't know.
Probably the marketing department don't know, so they're just making it
So we're going to compare it to the 51.8.
sharp as.
Bit battered, that is.
That's it. What have you done? You gone and used it for real?
I've
in
used
real
it
life?
for real.
They look almost.
Identical, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the
Oh my God.
1.2, the flask. Well, for me, it's my most used focal length. I use the 1.2 for most of my work. This is the most used lens I have.
There was a point when you were thinking of selling it, I think, a couple of years ago.
Well, even this year, I'm like, do I really need a 1.2?
and then but then you say it's your most used lens. So.
It is. Yeah, because I use the 1.8 obviously, but
Yeah.
it's very sharp. Well, the Z mount lenses, so they're sharp, clinical. They have the 1.8s have this nervous kind of background. I call it agitated background. But this is where the 1.2 kicks in because it's buttery, cream, airy, dreamy.
Right,
Exactly what I
okay.
want. So I'm thinking, well, will this 1.4 replace the use of this 1.2?
Probably not. Only because I don't know what the prices are yet until you reveal them, but I'm sure this is the cheapest of the three, and that's by far the most expensive.
Well, we might as well go with that now. That flows well. So the 1.4 lens, I got it for £345 on Nikon refurbished.
Right, yeah.
That's why I bought it.
Yeah.
Brand new, you can buy it for £500.
Okay.
Brand new. The 1.8 is 629, brand new.
Right.
But unused, it's about 450.
Okay.
And of course, the 1.2, 2,300.
£1 million.
£2,300, but 1,500 used.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you can see the price is there. For used and brand new, those two are very similar. I wouldn't consider price.
So why did you buy a 1.4? Because you thought you were going to get a little bit more blurry background than 1.8?
I love 1.4s. I think it's just the right. So 1.8's a bit too clinical with these Z mounts. 1.2, well, I don't want to carry this around with me all the time, and you can't use it for a lot of cases because it's so big and formidable. So I'm thinking, well, 1.4, best of both worlds.
1.4.
Right, the build. So very similar to the 1.8.
Yeah, very similar.
I think the weight is 422 gram compared to 415 of the 1.8 lens.
Okay.
I mean, they're obviously different. The comparison to 1.2 is, the weight of it, you might be able to. How much weight is that? 1,090 gram. It's over a kilogram heavy. Nearly 1.1 kilogram.
Okay. Yeah.
Over a long day.
Good for exercise.
Yeah. Over a long day, you feel it. On the ZF, I wouldn't use it. Just the grip.
Because you can't hold that camera anyway.
Yeah. It's true. I only use it on mine.
With a small rig grip?
No, it's
still not deep enough for grip though, is it?
It only has partial weather sealing.
So you can only go out in partial rain.
That's probably right. Yeah. Whereas the one
Rain it, no it doesn't. Rain it, no it doesn't. 1.4.
So the 1.8 is fully weather sealed. The 1.4 is mostly. Right. So the 1.4 has a function ring, but it doesn't have any switches.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has that function ring. You can program it to anything, but for me, I usually turn them off because I knock them accidentally.
Yeah. Well, everybody else does, don't they? Turn them off. 51.4
versus 1.2.
I'm used to you asking me which is which, but
I've left it on.
Yeah, I know you have, but I mean it's pretty obvious looking at the background.
Okay.
That's the 51.2.
Yeah,
because the background is blurrier.
Yeah,
but apart from that, sharpness wise,
they look very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
On my bigger screen, and then without the sun glaring on the screen, you can see that there's a purple tinge to the 1.4. Some colours a bit more saturated, like you see the fence. The main point I want to point out is that with the 1.4, with sharpness at edges, they have this is where the retro thing comes into it. So the edges in the bokeh have this kind of fuzzy kind of soap bubble, and it has chromatic aberration coming through.
It's got some chromatic aberration.
Yeah.
1.4, 1.8.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the 1.4 has got a very slightly blurrier background, as it should have.
Yeah. 1.8, the background is, the background becomes a bit more distracting. 1.4, it's smoother. But again, the fuzziness of the edges of the transitions.
Yeah.
So this is the minimal focal distance.
Right.
And the first thing to note with the 1.2 is it will have different magnification. Because of focus breathing.
Explain to me focus breathing. Edit that question.
No, I'll keep it in. So it has the 1.8 lenses, the 1.4 has 0.17 magnification. The 1.2 has 0.15, which means...
What does that even mean?
So the subject, even at the same focal length, will seem close bigger.
As you focus it, it moves slightly.
It moves closer to you with the 1.2. I've got my old owl out.
Got the old owl.
And I've used a backdrop that is usually hard to make look nice because it's foliage, and specular highlights.
Yeah.
And it blows out the background completely.
Right, yeah, the 1.2 is really nice, isn't it?
And that's 100%. Now this is the sharpness. 1.2 versus 1.4.
There's not a lot in it, is there?
No.
That's what you're paying the money for, 1.2.
Yeah, if you look at the breast of the owl, you can see that's, even at 1.2, that's, I would say it's more clarity, more sharper, more containment. This is versus 1.8 lens.
Yes, and the background looks very similar though.
Yeah, I mean, one's at 1.4, one's at 1.8, so it's...
You can see the sharpness there on the 1.8.
Yeah, the 1.8 stands out. Yeah. The more you crop in, and again, you can see the edges of the owl has that fuzzy line to it, whereas the 1.8, it's definite.
Definite, yeah.
Optical clarity there. So then we've got bokeh balls. So that's versus the 1.2. Balls are almost twice as big, but again, they're both at 1.4 now.
Right, okay.
But because the bigger lens has bigger optics and it's bigger magnification, it's still going to be bokeh-licious. And that's versus the 1.8. Now, if you're into your bokeh, the 1.8, obviously it's smaller.
1.4's almost got rounder balls.
Yeah.
Than the 1.8.
So the 1.4 with specular highlights, it has a fuzzy soap bubble look. Just the edges like chromatic aberration. You've got greens and edgy hard. The 1.8 lens doesn't have that because it's optically corrected. But the inside of it has a soap bubble effect where it just sees the rings. So
who looks that closely at a bokeh ball to see the soap bubble effect?
We are.
Apart from the pixel peeping photographer.
All the photographers out there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, this is interesting though. So you think 1.4 will blur out the background more than the 1.8. But I put an ironing board there on purpose because it's got stripes and a bit horrible.
You've got all the props, haven't you? All the professional props.
You can see that the 1.4 is worse. It shows it more in focus, and that's because it's not optically correcting the difficult situation with the light.
In some use cases, there'd be very little to choose between any of them, I think.
No, exactly. But with sharpness wise, the 1.4 is the softest. But if you look at it overall, there's not much in it unless you really need that. The thing
I've mentioned obviously about the lower, 1.4s and 1.2s is that it's in low light situations.
That's perfectly transition to where I was going next. Thank you. Yeah, so 1.2 to 1.4 is half a stop.
Is it?
Yeah, 30% extra light you can enter the camera.
Okay.
1.4 to 1.8 is 2/3 of a stop.
Right.
60% more light. And the 1.2 to 1.8 is 100% more.
Right, because it's one whole stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're in a tricky situation with ISOs and low light, although we've been saying for a long time that the cameras are so good.
They are.
And the software's amazing.
It is.
So have you ever thought, oh, this is where I could do with something better than a 1.0?
So,
I mean, the times I use, when I'm doing event photography and the flash isn't working because of the high ceiling or something, then I do use shoot wide open as possible. And so that's when the 1.2 to 1.8 will have significance. Focus speed. They're all about the same. They're all quiet. I didn't really see any difference between the focus speed with any of them. It's very, very close.
Well, they're all Z mounts, they're all good lenses, they're all well made.
Yeah, and I tested it on the ZF and a few on my Z8, and it's the second generation of mirrorless cameras. It's all camera dependent. If you put it on our old cameras, then it will be slower. But something to consider, because I use the ZF to do my testing, and it has an 0.008 of a second limit.
Right.
When you're shooting 1.2 or 1.4, even 1.8 in sunlight, you need more than that. The Z6 has 16,000 high speed, and the Z8 has 32,000 of a second.
There is a solution, you know.
What? Stop down?
Neutral density filter.
Oh yeah. They all have heavy vignetting, which I'm disappointed with, really. The S lenses, the 1.2 has it,
right,
and the 1.8 has it. The 1.4 is the worst, but the more you step down with it, the better it gets.
Yeah.
And that's the same with all of them, but they all have it, which is consideration there. It actually does quite well with flaring. I'm surprised. Because I put it against the sun, and they all perform very similar.
Yeah.
Of course, we've seen already the 1.4 lens has chromatic aberration, the green fringes.
You just press a button on Lightroom, that disappears.
Sometimes. Come on. There we go. 1.4.
3.
Shing. There we go. Right. Yeah, can you tell the difference?
No.
Right. No.
I haven't looked.
Be interesting because there's specular highlights in the backdrop.
Specular. Is this a new word that we've?
I like it. It's my new vocabulary of
specular.
Right, so there was a lot to digest there. Thank you, Bird. There was a lot to digest there.
There was.
But in summary, I found it sharp enough. I've been using it for various things, mostly music, photography. I'm happy with the look of it, the sharpness, the focus speed, the rendition. My only concern is those edges with
the
and
the specular.
There's a question always you find online. It is the 1.4 an upgrade from the 1.8?
Why would they say that?
Because it's newer, it's 4 years newer, and it's a 1.4.
Whatever S is.
I know, but people don't understand that, do they?
No.
It's kind of half retro, half Z mount hybrid, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a particular taste. If you like the bokeh and those edges and things like that, then great. A lot of people won't.
If you didn't have a 50, and you only wanted to have 150 in your arsenal, rather than 17, which one would you buy?
The Sony 1.2.
I thought you would. You love that, don't you?
Well, we've seen it at the we've seen it at the photography show. It was nice, compact, 1.2.
You need to get an adapter and then go and rent one.
I do, yeah. But in the Nikon range, I would have to go for the 1.2 because
it's a big old prime.
Yeah,
it's heavy. You like good old heavy lenses to lug around.
I hate it. But we're doing these tests. I realise its power.
Yeah, it'll cope with
razor sharp, wide open. Yeah. It has the look. It has the creamy depth of field. And
it has the price tag.
Yeah, of course it does. But for most people, they're going to be choosing between the 1.4 and the 1.8. So let me put that to you. So if you didn't have any, which one would you go for based on this?
I feel like I'd want the 1.8. I don't know, but the 1.4, it's a great little package. It's the same size and weight.
Yeah.
And to be honest, thinking about it, I don't use the 50 very often at all.
Well, so people starting out, this is great because it has a retro look to it that might people like. If you don't like the retro look, it's not heavy enough retro look to put people off.
No.
And it's cheap. If I got it for even £500 new, it's for 1.4 lens, that's pretty decent. I think Nikon must have done this range to compete with the third-party manufacturers. So yeah, does it get your stamp of approval?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It can't not, can it?
No, it's decent, isn't it? It's a good quality.
Price and quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. What do you guys think of our results? And has anyone got it and have found something?
Is anyone mad enough to have all three, like Mr. Russell?
Yeah, okay. And remember to join our channel.
Please.
And get different membership benefits and buy us a coffee as well. So I need a coffee after all that.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice.
I need more than one.
But this is about 40 minutes of filming time we've just done. See you next time.
See you next time.